next up, Kim Kruse. Kim is actually, this is her second Top 10 talk, so we want to welcome her. She's a veteran. She's got a really, I find, a fascinating talk. She goes deep in a mere 10 minutes, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about when you come into an obstacle or a big challenge, some things that you can sort of take the initiative and maybe look at it a little bit differently, if that's a good way of putting it. I'll let her explain, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. Just a couple things about Kim. She really believes in the power of story to connect people personally. I think something probably everybody here agrees with, which is why we're all telling you our stories. And also, Kim has been, forgot to mention, she's the Director of Development for Corporate and Foundation Relations here at the Foundation. And she also likes to sing, to unwind. Things we're discovering about one another through these Top 10 talks, really interesting. People are sharing more and more. And the last thing is she enjoys doing the spelling bee puzzle from the New York Times with her two boys. Kim, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. So, it's happened to all of us. Maybe you're on your way to work one morning and you get a flat tire. Or maybe you're already at work and you're cranking through your day and you're so excited because you're going to get this big project done, and then you get an email from your boss that says, drop everything, I need you to finish this by the end of the business day. Or maybe you get a phone call from a loved one, the phone call no one wants to get. I have cancer. While the scenarios in these three situations are very different, there are common threads. All of these things were unexpected and unwelcomed in your life. It can be so easy for us to get comfortable rolling down our little road of life toward our beautiful sunset, and to forget that it's inevitable that we are going to experience some potholes and some ruts along the way. All of us, in fact, are living through one of these deep ruts right now that nobody saw coming, except maybe Bill Gates, but that's another TED Talk for another day. So, but yeah, COVID-19, right? It has caused ripples across the globe that millions of people are still adjusting to. So when things happen in our life that we don't expect and don't welcome, then what? I want to share with you today a resource that has helped me in dealing with some of the unexpected things in my own life. And it's this book, The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. In it, he shares stories from the Stoic philosophers Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, but don't worry, it's not a dry snooze fest. He also sprinkles in stories from more modern day heroes like Amelia Earhart, Teddy Roosevelt, and also Warren Buffett. And he reminds us that there are ways that we can put efforts into practice to change things that are trials into triumphs. And there's three elements that he focuses on. They are perception, action, and will. And we'll start with perception, with a personal story. So it was December 2012. I was just getting ready to go back to work after having had my first son. And it was hard to go back to work. And I didn't really want to leave the baby, but these are the things we have to do in life. I wanted a way to keep him with me while I was at work. And I had the inspiration for this tattoo that's on my wrist. The most distal, to use the medical term, the most distal element is this triangle, which some of you might recognize as the mathematical symbol for change or difference. And then each of the other three elements represented me, my son, and my husband, sort of moving forward, embracing the change in life and moving forward together. So I figured if I had another kid, I would add another V and everything would be hunky-dory. However, we did have another son, but before I got a chance to do that, I got a phone call one night that I didn't expect. It wasn't cancer. It was what would lead to divorce. So Ryan Holiday reminds us in The Obstacle is the Way that while we cannot control the things that happen to us, there are always things that are within our control. He reminds us to focus on our perspective, our judgments, our attitudes, our emotions, and to embrace creativity as we do these things. So for me, instead of looking at this tattoo as a symbol of my failed marriage, which is something I could easily do, I reframed it. And now when I look at it, I see myself and my 2 sons moving forward into the world, living my new life as a single mom. So often, as you can probably tell by the points I made about perception, some of what can be a challenge for us with obstacles is the way that we think about them, right? It's our preconceptions about a situation that are often the biggest problem. We think things are unfair. We think things should be a different way than they are. We think that, well, once this changes, then I'll be able to do this, right? There's all these ways that we can sort of do mental gymnastics and tell ourselves why we're not doing whatever it is that we're supposed to be doing. But Ryan Holiday reminds us that really the key is to take action. Even if it's small and consistent action over time can have an effect. So I like to think about a single raindrop, right? If we're walking along down the road one day and one raindrop hits us, no big deal, right? But for anyone who lives in Florida, you know the power when there's enough water that falls from the sky. That can have an effect on your life, right? You come back to the office drenched after you go out to lunch. Or enough rain over time can collect and form rivers and streams and over years carve deep canyons through rock. That is the power of consistent action. So Ryan Holiday reminds us that, sure, there's going to be times where we get a hand that we're dealt. It's not the best hand. We really don't want to play it. Play it anyway. Find a way to make it work. There will be times where we just don't feel like it. That's okay. Find a way to take small action and keep going. We have to be resolute in our determination to act. And with that in mind, I want to tell a story about Black Alumni Reunion from 2020. So like so many events, it was scheduled to be in person, but then because of COVID, had to pivot and go online. And as you can see from the slide here, if you're reading at home or if you're in the audience here, Black Alumni Reunion set a record for fundraising in 2020. And I want to talk a little about that. So up front, you might think, well, this is tough because they've been doing this reunion in person for over 20 years, and people have gotten accustomed to this format and connecting with one another. And so how is this going to work? Well, they came up with a great plan to have 2 events online. They set their fundraising goal at $15,000. And within the first night, they had reached that $15,000 goal. So quickly they said, okay, great, are we gonna just stay there? No, let's increase the goal. So they increased the goal to $30,000. And by the end of the tailgate on the second evening, they had reached that goal as well. So what was it that led them to this great success? I think a large part of it was their creativity and also their vision for being able to capitalize on a unique moment in time. When other people might have said, well, we can't do it in person, let's just cancel it, right? They said, no, we're gonna find a way to do this and to do it in a way that people feel connected. Because at that point in the pandemic, that's what people really craved, right? I mean, people had been at home and they missed being around the people that mattered to them. So the organizers did this online, and I think one of the sort of secret sauce of this is that throughout the online events, they were dropping the fundraising link in the chat on the Zoom events. So that in itself helped raise the numbers somewhat. But then the real secret sauce was that folks were also going out and dropping the link out on social media. So then they were reaching not just the people who were registered for the reunion, but all of their network as well. And that, I think, is really how this sort of snowballed into this record-setting year for Black Alumni Reunion. So I think it's great. So that, again, is the power of taking consistent action and thinking creatively. And it's also, just an example of their persistence and tenacity. I mean, what does it really take to survive in very challenging conditions like what we're living through right now in COVID? So once again, we can look to nature. This is a bristlecone pine tree, which they live in very high elevation areas, in poor soils, rocky soils, dry soils, and they just get battered by the elements. And so you would think that these trees might be short-lived, right? Because it's just so rough to live where they live. Instead, these trees live for not just hundreds of years, but thousands of years. The oldest known bristlecone pine tree is 4,700 years old. We're talking like the time of the pyramids here. So, what can we learn to keep us going through these tough times? And part of it boils down to this sort of consistent undercurrent of our will. I think we here in UF Advancement emulate that too. I mean, we look at the beginning of COVID when everything was shut down. We're a fundraising organization that historically works off of face-to-face visits. That wasn't possible anymore. So did we just sit around and say, well, we'll wait for this COVID thing to be over in a couple weeks? No, we kept going. We found a way. We stayed in contact. We let our donors know how the university was keeping staff and students safe. And we reached out to talk about what our plans were through Zoom visits, through coffee mailings so that we could have coffee with our donors virtually. There is just that underlying ethos within us to keep going. And that is what Ryan Holiday talks about as far as the will, just finding a way to keep going no matter what. Because we have to remember, there's going to be hardship in our lives. It's so easy to think that we just get to, again, coast along toward that sunset. But challenge is a part of life, and failure even is a part of life. The key is to keep going. And so with that, I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes, which is often attributed to Teddy Roosevelt, who is the president known for protecting public lands, which is great for trees like that bristlecone pine tree that actually the 4,700-year-old one lives in a secret, undisclosed location somewhere on public lands. But yeah, do what you can with what you have where you are. And I hope that through this talk today, I've given you a few pointers that you might be able to put into practice in your personal life, your professional life, or both, that will help you to navigate the inevitable ruts and potholes along your road. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Kim. That was great.